Welcome, everyone. So happy you're joining us live in the Sensitive Empowerment community. And we're here with Willow McIntosh. Hello, Willow.
Hi, Julie. Great to be here.
And please introduce us to today's topic that you picked.
Yes, certainly. So this is my favorite area to explore as HSPs. And it is around the area of how to discover our purpose as an HSP. And what interests me most about this is that it is my purpose to help other HSPs discover their purpose. And the piece that I'm really interested in exploring today is the advantage that we have as HSPs when it comes to identifying our own area of expertise, the area of life that interests us, and ultimately our purpose, because of our ability to process sensory information that much more deeply. There's a wonderful link between what interests us about the world and other people and how our higher sensory abilities, as I like to call them, such as empathy and our creative abilities, our ability to read circumstances and people in the way that we do, and how that assists us to create an area of service for the world within this context of who we are. So, and I'm very interested to hear how that occurs for you, Julie, and of course for everyone in the chat listening. So yes.
I love that you found your way to this, Willow, because you're such a shining example of how can we use the gifts that we have inside of us to help others. And that's really exciting that that's what you do, I've witnessed sessions of yours. I've heard from a lot of people talking about who have worked with you, that how much you've helped them find those gifts that that are inside. And I think as sensitive people, it's especially important for us because we need to do things that are meaningful. And we aren't able to just do a random job that doesn't have any meaning for us. And I think that's why we're seeing so many people starting to do coaching and do their own businesses and things that are bringing them a lot of joy and light. And that's what's really special. It's like you share your light and it helps them light up and share another light. And it's kind of amazing to think about all the paths that can get lit up that way.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's it is a really wonderful, it's an honor to do the work in that sense, to support HSPs in this way. And I think what was the greatest breakthrough for me was having the opportunity to be seen when I was in my own training and having the opportunity to actually talk about how I experience the world myself, which was, it was such a breakthrough for me because I knew that the way in which I was in the world and experiencing the world was different, but I just assumed that everyone else was experiencing something similar, and that there wasn't really anything particularly important about the way I was experiencing the world. And that was the greatest downfall in terms of my own sense of well-being and meaning and my place in the world. And it was through the experience of actually taking ownership of what my high sensory abilities make possible, and most importantly, what really matters to me in the world. So that's one of the most, I would say, the most exciting part of the conversations that I invite high sensory people to have, to start to tune into their version of that. What is it in the world that matters most to them, and how are they experiencing the world from a higher sensory point of view? And that process of being seen in that way and recognizing that we have a very important role to play can be one of the most important conversations we can have, I think.
Wow, that's really neat. So you received that experience, yourself when you were, and somebody asked that in the question ahead of time about like, how did we start specializing in HSP? So it might be kind of interesting to share those stories a little bit and hear from you too. I know our journeys were a little bit different, but I'd love to hear, how did you even land on this? Like, how'd you discover you were an HSP, a sensitive, highly sensitive person with this high sensory intelligence? And how did you even get into where you are right now, where you create coaching, support for HSPs that want to become coaches? How did you even get into all that?
Yeah, so I've always been entrepreneurial. I've always been aware of the ability that I have to look after myself and create an income for myself. But for the first few years of my adult life, doing that was really miserable because I didn't feel at all as though I was really doing what I should be doing. But knowing what that was so, it just felt like there was no way of figuring that out. It just felt like there was this disconnect somewhere, and I was just going to have to live with it. There was no way I was ever really going to figure it out. And when I came through a difficult period in a business early on, one of my first businesses was renovating property, renovating real estate with my grandfather, which was amazing because I was able to spend all day with him, and he was handing down like generational knowledge, and it was really wonderful working with him in that way. But there was this part of me that just felt hidden. It felt like it was just below the surface, and I couldn't engage that part of myself. I couldn't meet myself at the level that I really wanted to. And when I discovered the trait, I discovered it through a lady who I used to work with on a regular basis. She was a Reiki master, and she had a whole range of wonderful abilities. She was also taught Tai Chi, and we used to hang out and talk a lot. And she one day said to me, I can't remember what it was I was talking about. And she said, "Yes, well, that makes sense, Willow, for someone who's as highly sensitive as you are." And I sort of thought, highly sensitive, how dare you? I'm a man. I'm a strong man, and I couldn't link these two things together. Anyway, so I got home and I started to research the trait, and I had heard the trait before about the trait. And when I started to research and started to look at it, I thought, wow, okay, yeah, no, this makes a great deal of sense. I definitely am highly sensitive. But it didn't really help me to just find out about surviving the trait, or how to how to kind of how to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. Like, it helped in that sense, but I knew there was this whole nother layer to it. And I was then very fortunate to meet another facilitator who was highly skilled in facilitating high sensory people. And through that process, what he allowed me to do through it's actually very similar to the facilitation process that I now utilize in the coaching program. But what he did is he allowed me to have an objective experience of what my high sense of reality was really like. In other words, what is it really like for you, Willow, to have this, to be processing more sensory information, which we all do at a deeper level? But how's that occurring for you? And what is it in the world that really matters to you? And through that process, I came to realize that I deeply cared about human potential and human purpose, and my own human purpose. And I realized that through my own journey, having come from a very difficult childhood, I came into the adult world in depression. I was very much in rejection of myself. And through this inquiry, it helped me to become aware of what mattered to me most and how much I cared about the potential of people, and especially high sensory people, and that we had a role to play in the world. And the way to discover that was through getting really honest about what we care about. And as a result, becoming aware that the way in which our high sensory abilities work are in alignment with what we really care about. So So through the process of me coming into ownership of that, I then also came into awareness of an innate ability that I have to facilitate that process in other people. So once I started working with and facilitating other high sensory people, I came to realize that I was able to sense and feel the truth of who they were. I'd be able to feel into when they were on track and talking in alignment with themselves and when they weren't. And through the years of running those facilitation sessions, I realized that we all have a very similar path or access into the truth of who we are by these core areas of what interests us, how we're seeing the world, and the way in which our journey through life has trained us in a particular area. And then that became my sole focus. And as a result of that, that's how I developed the high sensory coaching program and working with the people that I do today to help them to have that objective experience of who they are so they can then claim ownership of it.
Mm, yeah, that's beautiful to hear that story. And I think so many of us can relate to that kind of maybe not even realizing that we have these extra special gifts, the being told that you're highly sensitive, getting an instant reaction to that as if it's a negative. And I know, Willow, you and I have really tried hard to create that paradigm shift to change how we perceive sensitivity, that it's actually a gift that's needed and only a certain portion of the population have these gifts and all of that. I know from my own story, I early on knew I wanted to help others in some way. And I'd always had that gift where people would talk to me, open up with me about what they were going through, and they always felt really safe to do so. And it felt like really natural. But I remember someone telling me, oh, you can't be a therapist or a psychotherapist or a social worker or something like that because you're too sensitive and you're going to take everything home. And I literally changed my major away from psychology for a while because I was told that. I thought, you know what, they're right. I'm going to take everything home. I couldn't handle it. And it wasn't until many years later that I went into, so then my undergraduate was actually in health education because I had a lot of health challenges growing up. So I became very interested in how to stay well and healthy, and that became something that I was interested in too. But I always wanted to go into psychology. And so it wasn't until I was a little older that I went back to grad school. My kids were young at the time. And I want to share this message because I want everyone to know it's not too late. And I know there's a lot of sensitive people in our community that are changing careers, quite later in life. My own supervisor, when I was an intern, in fact, she changed her whole career later in life in her 50s. And I thank goodness she did because she was an incredible mentor to me. So when I finally started to when I was older and had a little bit more life experience and more tools, then it became just such a beautiful experience. I loved working with clients and especially with sensitive clients. And that became something that I wanted to do. It was just like a calling and being able to help. And my focus was a lot on how do we manage being so sensitive, where I'm at the highest level of sensitivity. So that's often who I attract to work with me. So how do you live at such a high level of sensitivity and accomplish what you want to accomplish in life and help others and still be, balanced and well in the world? And I got really interested in that part of it and being able to support sensitive people to do that. And so that's kind of my journey and how I started to specialize in HSPs. And I really encouraged. I love seeing so many in our HSP business group, people talking about how they're starting to specialize in sensitive people. And I think that that's a very beautiful thing, that sensitive people working with other sensitive people. It's really powerful. Don't you think, Willow?
Yes, definitely. Yes, I think we're very, very good at working with and supporting each other. And I think the right type of personal development and support is so important for us as high sensory people. And a lot of the coaches that come through the program want to then go and coach other high sensory people. And I think that's a wonderful, reciprocation, a very kind of wonderful way in which we can engage our abilities. But I love what you just shared there, Julie, about your own journey there and how you knew that psychology was something that you were very interested in. And how wonderful it is that I think for me, one of the greatest gifts that you bring the community is helping us to thrive and to be at our best, and to, not be overwhelmed or to be affected by the trait in a negative way, for us to really claim it and to be happy and the wholesomeness of it all that we should be. And I think it plays so well to your abilities, because you're especially with the courses that you make and all of the wonderful resources that you create for us. It's all part of your ability to be able to see in deeper into us, to know, what the causes are of problems that we have, or things that we can address, or techniques that we can learn in order to thrive. And I think it's again, it's a great it's a really great example of how, when we really tune into what we love and what matters most to us, we find that we have the gifts to support that. And I think you're a great example of that, because you've really claimed that. You knew psychology was important to you, and you did it no matter what anyone said. And look where you are now. You're one of the most important people in the world of HSPs.
That's sweet, Willow. Thank you. And I want to share, because I think it is important to share the stories that how we got here, and that I was challenged with sensitivity. And I'm always really open about that. Like, we have a lot of open discussions in the community about, I'll share when I'm particularly challenged over something. Because I think that it's important to talk about that. It's important to talk about and acknowledge and normalize some of the challenges, and to know that the challenges aren't so much because you're sensitive. It's because the world's not set up for sensitivity, for these levels of sensitivity. It's not that you have a problem with sensitivity. And I always say, it's like, go into nature for a few days and you don't even need tools when you're in nature, or snorkeling, right, Willow?
Yeah.
You don't need any tools when you're in the water or something like that. Meaning, there's not something wrong with you as a sensitive person. I think that's a big part of my message, to create that paradigm shift, to recognize the value. And you can just see, how special it is to be together as sensitive people. We were just talking about that before we recorded, that there's something really special about sensitive people. And when we're together, it's like we get to feel this sense of belonging we've never really felt before. We feel like we shift those messages. We were just talking before with Robbie about this before we started, that to walk around feeling broken in the world. And I think so many of us have felt that. We received messages that something was wrong with us. Willow, you were saying that those things were sort of under the surface, the gifts within you, and you're not even necessarily sure about them. And then on top of that, you've been told that the sensitive parts of you are somehow wrong, and to be able to shift that into, not only are they not wrong, but they're really special, and that there's these gifts that you have within you to be able to read people, to read their energy, to really understand. When I'm working with someone, I can just feel what they feel. And I feel like when I'm talking with someone, Willow, I think probably I feel like one of my biggest gifts is when I'm talking with someone, I can see their gifts, even if they can't see their gifts. It's very apparent to me, and I love helping them discover them.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, that's wonderful. And again, it's so important to be aware of these abilities, because once we know that there's a very good reason why we're highly sensitive, we have this kind of, this more sensitive radar in the world that allows us to pick up on more information. It's the sensitivity in you that allows you to see the gifts in others, because you can feel into someone and you can see through the fabric of who they are, and it's similar in the way that I work too. We're picking up on tone of voice and micro expressions, and we're feeling what the person's feeling in front of us, and we intuit things, and we get we're able to utilize this bigger range of information to be able to do what we do. And that's life changing for us, because suddenly it makes sense of why we can't be in a shopping mall for 10 hours. It's because there's a reason. It's because we're here to share this information that we're receiving. And each of us has our own unique way of doing that. We have our own area of expertise. And I think, one of the sort of the blocks, or one of the occurring things that happens when I speak with HSPs about this is they tend to gloss over these abilities. They think, oh yeah, I am quite good at that, but I've never really thought about it, or I just think everyone else can do that. And sometimes they gloss over really profound abilities. And I say it so often, but my invitation really is to tune into and feel into how we're seeing the world, and the abilities that we have, and to recognize that that's how we access the truth of who we are, our sense of well-being, and most importantly, as I say, our place in the world.
Yes. Willow, I think it'd be great for you to share with males or masculine centered people how you shifted those messages, those early messages about sensitivity. What would you tell them now if someone's like listening to this and they've only received messages that sensitivity is a negative? What would you tell them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah. If I'm very honest, I've come to realize that the things in life before that required me to be non-sensitive, I actually didn't really care about. So so in other words, the general things that men are supposed to be into, such as, I mean, the general examples of how a man is supposed to be in the world. When I was trying to be that man for acceptance and love from externally, I came to realize that that wasn't where my heart was. I loved, yes, I loved hanging out with friends and, doing manly stuff, but it wasn't really, it wasn't the most important thing to me. And so what's happened is I've come to realize that I deeply care about a different side of life. I really care about where we're going as a race. I care deeply about who people are. I love adventure in nature, and I love exploring myself at a deeper level. So there's been a vulnerability and a surrendering to who I really am as a man. And through that, I have come into contact with a much more substantial strength within me. Whereas trying to be strong for others, inside I was very, very weak. Whereas now, by being true to myself, I'm now in this place of inner strength and knowing, if you like, because I'm being honest about what really matters to me. And then all of my high sensory faculties and abilities, I'm able to really enjoy those and share those and be honest about who I am, because there's particular people that I love to be around. And so I'm now honest about who I love to be around. And I think that in a nutshell is really the shift, is allowing ourselves to be ourselves, and to know that there are people that are there to receive that truth. And then there's a relaxing, and then there's that sense of personal empowerment that comes as a result of that.
And that's so beautiful, Willow. And your sensitivity is my favorite part about you.
Oh, thank you.
And I love seeing your cat walk across the screen just now. How adorable. Oh my goodness.
Yes, she came in at a very opportune moment there to
So cute. I wish I could have mine in the room with us, but she would take over. And she's
right.
very chatty. She likes to meow a lot. That's so cute. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I want to read
Yeah.
something Jane wrote, because I think that this is so true for so many of us. And I think it's really beautiful. Sharing, I spent 20 years feeling broken, starting to feel a little bit more mended now, and especially now that I'm here, though. And I think that that's one of the things that's so special about being together in a community, is that of sensitive people, is that we do start to feel like we're healing, and we're starting to connect to the parts of us that are beautifully sensitive. And Willow, that was like the very first time, and I don't know if people know how we connected in the first place, was that I came across an article that you had written. And I really related to it. It was obvious that you were a highly sensitive person. And I reached out to you and I was like, I got to talk to him and just connect in some way. And that's what brought us together.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love that. It was wonderful that we met in that way, and I'll never forget the first conversation that we had live, and we just, there was a wonderful synchronicity with us, and a sharing of our passion for the world and what we're here to do. And I think, I think that is important to be aware of, that's there for all of us as high sensory people, right? That it's not about us trying to be someone that we're not. It's not about us trying to fit into the world. It's about us recognizing that we have something very, very special to bring, and we are unique for a reason. I say this a lot, but it's, this trait it appears naturally. Nature has given 20% of the population this wonderful trait. And that, it's not by mistake. It doesn't happen through trauma or conditioning. It's something that nature deems to be a very important part of the balance of the human race. So I think getting together and being together and sharing our like-minded views helps enormously for us to claim who we are, and that shift away from trying to be someone else for the sake of, to try to get acceptance.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful part of who you are for all the sensitive people listening. And I want to give a chance to, if anybody who's live with us right now in the sensitive empowerment community, if you have questions for us, you can put them into the chat and we can include it on this podcast episode. And Willow, I wanted to go back to something you were saying too about how a lot of times we think that everyone can do what we can do, or what we can, have the intuition that we do, or the ability to read people. And it often shows up in things like, you might notice that somebody's not as conscientious as you. I used to see this a lot in my clients, they coming in and feeling so frustrated, like, how could they have not done that? I would have done this differently. Why didn't they do it that way? Why I'm giving so much, why aren't they giving back, or different things like that. But really coming to the realization that we really do have a set of information that's different and expanded and advanced and more. We have more information, and we pick up all kinds of details that most of the population are missing. So these are such powerful parts of the beauty of this trait that I think are so really important. And Willow, also wanted to say, like, what else was it really important for you? Like, when you think about somebody walking away from this episode, for example, what do you think's really important that you want to make sure that you're sharing?
Yes, I think you just touched on it there. It's to know that if you have the trait, there is an ability that comes with it. So there is going to be a subtlety in which you're processing and experiencing a particular area of life, that it gives you a special area of competence. And if there's anything that I can share, it is to explore that. It is to know that there's an area of life that interests and fascinates you. So if you think back to early childhood, there's going to be an interest that's always been with you. And when you start to feel into that, you'll notice that the subtleties in your sensory awareness are actually in service to that interest. So for instance, if you're fascinated by well-being, it means that when you're sitting in front of someone and you're having a conscious conversation in the area of well-being, you're going to be picking up on more information in that person in the area of well-being. You're going to have a natural interest and a natural competence that allows you to discern key bits of information to support that person in their journey of well-being. It's going to be the same if it's relationships you're interested in, if it's discovering purpose, even if it's art or creativity, if you're really into singing or painting, which is often the case for us. As high sensory people, we either fall into the role of coach, or artist. And that's a very big brush, but it's typically one of those areas. But whatever the area of life that you're interested in, your natural sensory ability is in support of that. So my invitation is to explore that, is to have more conversations that matter to you, and to notice what happens to your perception in those conversations, because you're here to serve in that area.
I like that. Jane had a kind of some tips about her journey, and I'm wondering if what he just said helped you kind of have a sense of what your journey might look like. She was saying that she loves this topic, and the idea of finding my purpose, aligning myself with what I was put on this earth to do, speaks so loudly to me. It can bring tears to my eyes. I love that, Jane. And since hearing you guys mention this on a previous podcast recording, which, by the way, prompted me to join the community, yay, I'm so happy that that helped you find us here. I've added moving toward my purpose in my morning meditation and connection practices. I have a sense that I've come a long way, and I've got a long way to go. Any tips for the journey? So I think that probably what you just said, Willow, yeah, she's saying lots to be going on. Thank you so much. I think that, and I think our journey is never done, and I think it constantly evolves too. And with what we are going through in our own lives, and the different transitions that we're in, and the life experiences that we've had, being able to kind of evolve with that. And I always say, like, if you aren't sure about something too, it's like standing in front of a few paths of possibilities and thinking about, if you were to take out everybody out of the bucket and it's just you, and you're not thinking about what somebody's going to think about it, or what their opinions are going to be, or somebody's going to have something to say, but just you, just thinking about what lights you up, what are those things that really light you up inside, and following those. And sometimes it's not a straight line to get there. Sometimes you end up on a path that opens up a door to another path, and then just kind of keep on following that light. And under the surface, know that taking care of your wellness and your balance as a sensitive person will help you on that path to getting to do your purpose. Because we all know, like any of us that have had health issues, we know that the health is really has to be there in order for us to be able to take forward movement on a path that we want to get to. So the combination of things that we've talked about in all these different podcast episodes, I really recommend people go in and explore all the episodes. Willow, we're in like 161 countries now. And, we've had over 300,000 people listening to this podcast. And thank you for sharing the podcast. For all of you that have listened and shared episodes that you feel have been valuable to you, you've made a difference in the lives of people. We get to hear from you every day out there listening to the podcast, that this has helped you, that it's changed your life. And that's why we do it. So if you keep telling us that, and you guys keep sharing, then we know you want us to keep continuing to do this podcast. It lets us know, and we appreciate that you've reviewed. Those of you that have reviewed the podcast, that's something that we really appreciate. And we read all the reviews. Willow and I share. I constantly text him and be like, Willow, somebody said this, and it lights us up to know that you took the time to review it, and you took the time to share it, and then you took the time to let us know what it means to you. And thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is wonderful when that happens, to know that our message is getting out there and it's resonating, and all the wonderful messages that come back, the wonderful perspectives, and the, just the affirmation that there is so many wonderful HSPs out there that are also doing wonderful work and really care about who we are and the importance of who we are in the world. And I think you touched on something really important again there, Julie. And it's when we get that inkling of something that's interesting us, or we get that sense, or that sort of, even if it's quite hidden or distant within us, there's some kind of interest, there's some kind of focus that we want to talk about, there's something that keeps recurring for us. That's the key. That's the piece to pursue and to dive into, and it's weird for us as high sensory people, because we're not able to have the conversations that we really want to have. You know, we're not really often able to talk about what it means to be highly sensitive and what that means and how we experience the world. That's a very private part of who we are until we actually come into these types of communities. So that's the piece to really tune into and become aware of, is that, is that the actual way in which we're thinking and processing, that's the way into recognizing who we are and where our purpose really lies, you know. And it's the fact that that's a conversation that's not very common to have is not a reason not to talk about it. In fact, it is the reason to talk about it. It's an invitation to talk about it with people that get that and understand it, especially in the communities that we have. So it's no longer, you know, it's no longer weird, or it's no longer a conversation that we're not able to have. It's a conversation that's very normal. It's something that we can talk about. Do you know what? I actually feel really deeply about this. And I've noticed that when I have this type of conversation, this kind of reaction happens in me. And I notice that when I do this and that happens. And through exploring that and just recognizing that that's a normal part of who we are, that's how we can then start to reveal this area of life that interests us and ultimately our purpose.
That's so beautiful. It's beautifully said. And I think that's so true, like not to filter ourselves anymore. You know, I think that there is definitely a disconnect that can happen when we're talking to somebody that doesn't have this trait, that, you know, there's a depth that we reach as sensitive people that often only another sensitive person can reach that level of depth. And I think that's why it's so powerful when we are not filtering ourselves anymore and we feel that sense of acceptance and really, you know, take off those layers that have told you anything other than there's something, you know, beautiful about who you are and your sensitivity, and that's actually the path. Like if you're somebody that's really wants to discover your purpose, you probably have a sense of what that might be, but there may be people that have told you in your life at some point that, you know, that's ridiculous, or that's not what people should do. You should do this, and hear the shoulds in there. But, you know, it's the same thing when I started what I'm doing. It's like, there was no roadmap that I could follow that got me here. That was like, yeah, that person did this and I'm going to do it the same way. I've always done things a little differently. And every time I start to worry about what other people are thinking, that's that external focus, I get lost and I lose my intuitive abilities. But if I go back into what do I think is really important, and I'm thinking about you all when I'm creating a course or I'm creating any kind of anything, I'm thinking about you all and what our experiences are as sensitive people, and taking away those filters. And I think that's something really powerful. Even Fiona was saying the podcast have completely changes how I understand myself and my HSP experience. And that's so beautiful that it can help you understand who you are, and that when you can understand who you are and not filter who you are and just show up who as you are, it helps you to uncover those purposes and really kind of lift off any kind of challenges that might be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Yeah, it's so important for us to do that. You know, there's nothing wrong with us doing that. Is every person has interests and cares about things and has their own personal experience. And for us, it's so important to explore that and to share it and be that, because it is who we are. And the other thing that I feel is important to mention is that as HSPs, we care very, very deeply. We care deeply about particular matters in the world. You know, we care deeply about the environment. We care deeply about the welfare of animals, how children are treated. Are people being heard? Are they being seen? Are they being acknowledged? You know, we stand up for things. And that again is a very important indication to tune into, you know, what is it that I really care about in the world? Because that again is an indication of where our purpose lies. You know, nature doesn't make mistakes in this way, and it's actually the same for all human beings. We all have a natural area of competence, all of us, whether we're HSPs or not. And with that natural area of competence, whatever it may be, whether it's shoemaking to car making, whatever it is, we all come in with a particular interest, but we also come in with a passion for that. Otherwise, we wouldn't explore our area of competence. It's the same way that a cat's passionate about chasing things. It's those two things have to go hand in hand. So that's another way to tune into our purpose, is to think, what is it that I really care about? And to recognize that sometimes when we're on other people's agendas, whether we're working in a job that we don't like, or we're constantly in conversations or around people that we're not resonating with, it's because there's a deeper calling within us to want to do something that we really care about. We want to make a change. We want to make a difference. So it's recognizing that that's naturally there. It's there within all of us, and to get around people where we can get honest about that area,
Yeah,
we will then start to find our purpose.
that's beautiful, Willow. And I want to say that it's in that light that you have that heals, and that you being able to shine your light like that in your purpose and follow your purpose. I mean, this is our lifetime right now to do it, and the world needs sensitive people to be the healers in the world, and to help others and make a difference in the world and be the change. I have my Be the Change shirt on today for this, because I really believe that HSPs are the ones that are going to be the change that we need in the world. And that if there's anything that we can do that supports that in you, that's really a big part of our purpose. And Willow, why don't you share a little bit about how people can work with you? You have an amazing coaching program. We'll put a link to it in the show notes as well. But I'd love for you to just share a few sentences about that.
Yeah, certainly. Yes. So the coaching program is very much designed to help us as high sensory people to come into awareness of what our natural area of competence is. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to become a coach. We can use the program or the training to begin the endeavor that matters most to us. But the core outcome of the program is to have the conversations and get the right facilitation in order to start to inquire and explore how our high sensory ability is working, what matters most to us, how life has challenged us in a particular area that gives us an innate area of expertise. Many people ask me, yes, I'd love to coach, but I don't have any experience coaching. But you have tremendous life experience in the area of life that matters most to you. We've all been challenged in a very particular area, and that's what makes us naturally gifted at being coaches. So we have this extra addition as high sensory people because we can tune in and feel into people at a deeper level, which gives us a tremendous advantage when it comes to coaching, healing, facilitating, advising. These are the areas that we're very interested in. And what I like to do is to offer anyone a chance to speak to one of us, whether it's me or to one of our trainers. So you can just start to have these conversations where there's no obligation necessarily to join the program, but you can just have the opportunity to say, do you know what, I think it's this, I think it's that, and to be able to speak to someone who's highly skilled in facilitating this within HSPs. We only work with HSPs. So if that is of interest and you just like to explore and find out maybe whether the training is right for you, then you can go to highsensoryintelligence.com, which will take you to the main Illuminance website. And then you can just book a call and you can chat to us, and then we'll tell you all about it. And then you can make a decision from there. But my invitation is, if you're feeling driven to want to really find out what your purpose is and what you're here to do, then the program and our service is very much designed for that.
Beautiful, Willow, and highly recommended. Sveta says we're all beautiful lit candles, and we can light other candles with our flame. That's
Wow.
beautiful and so true. What you can accomplish in the world is, comes from that depth inside your heart that only you as a sensitive person can reach. And we're here to support you. We really recommend that you join the sensitive empowerment community if you haven't already, and check out all the episodes that we've done on the HSP podcast. We'll have links to everything that we're talking about in the show notes. Alicia mentioned my brain training course being helpful. That's a great one for if you're really struggling to find balance and you want to have like a launching point to be able to get to that balance in life. That can really help. We have so many resources for you, and you can find all the podcast episodes at hsppodcast.com, read our bios, be able to connect to us directly. And we hope to see you in the community. You can go to sensitiveconnection.com to join the community and see all the resources. We've got Willow's coaching program on my resource page as well, because I've heard such good things about it helping sensitive people. And we have a lot of people from your coaching program in our community and in our HSPs in Heart-Centered Business group. And we love that. And we try to support you in lots of different ways. We have a directory that you can get. You have actually several directories you can get on to be listed so HSPs can find you. So if you're a coach or you're starting to be a coach and you want clients, we recommend getting listed on that public directory on my website. You can write for the HSP blog. And then I share that with thousands of HSPs in my newsletter every week. Willow, I think you're coming up with a blog post soon about your work and something interesting. So be on the lookout for that.
Yes, absolutely. On its way.
Yes. And anything else you want to share, Willow?
I think just to say that if you're listening to this and maybe it's your first time hearing the podcast, or perhaps you've heard a few episodes and you're hearing about these resources and the extra support that you can get. I know what it's like. Sometimes you listen and think, oh yes, I must check that out, or I'll do it later. But I really do recommend tuning into some of the resources, especially that are on your sensitiveempowerment.com page, Julie, you know, because it helps so much to get the support and to get these tools and techniques from those of us who have been through what we've been through to give you this information. You know, we've come through such challenging experiences in our own lives to be able to bring you these resources, you know, and they can mean everything in terms of finding our purpose, finding our sense of well-being, thriving, finding the community, especially your amazing community, Julie. So I think if you're thinking to yourself, oh yeah, maybe one day, I just recommend having a look, because you just never know what you're going to find.
Yeah. And you'll probably find yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
You'll find your true self, which is a beautiful thing. And I hope you can join us on our next episode. We're going to talk about overwhelm and exhaustion and preventing burnout in HSPs. We're going to talk about that on the next episode, and we'd love to have you join us live for that. So we do our recordings live inside the Sensitive Empowerment community. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, community, for being with us, and Willow, for your beautiful heart and sharing everything that you do and the ways that you help others. And just want to send out lots of love to all of you HSPs listening out there, and hope to see you in our next podcast episode. And we love having you here with us live. Love you guys.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everybody.
everyone. See you soon. Bye.